We're on Nickelodeon or the town now?
I think the town. All right. Welcome, everybody, to the February 4th Finance Committee meeting. That's commencing at 6:31. First order of business is Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. First order of business would be to approve the January 21st minutes.
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Are there any discussion on the minutes for the 21st? Hearing none, all those in favor to approve the minutes of the 21st as...
Aye.
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 Unanimous. Well, one up, absent. Okay. Old business first. Let me say that I did have a email correspondence with Glenn Harrington regarding the question about we cleaned up that emergency funding and so forth for that unit. So, the majority of the work has, or will be done by tomorrow, so that this goes back on Monday, so I assume that the majority of the work is done. As he wrote, there's a punch list of items remaining: smoke detectors, installing the doors after painting, and moving in clean furniture. The rugs are back in and mattresses will be delivered soon. The next question was, it's up to the town manager and town council to determine if the owner's insurance can be made to cover the expenses. The reimbursement to the town is set by statute and must be done on the placement of a recorded lien against the property. The Board of Health does not consider the value, market, or otherwise in its required response to remove a nuisance. That being said, we have had at least 3 inquiries from individuals wishing to purchase the property. I just don't know what the existing borrow amount is or the bank's schedule for foreclosure. We do have invoices from the contract that need to be processed. We are still working within the confines of the $45,000. So the only question I had was, and I don't know if I checked it today, I believe I copied you on it, Rod, was that I thought we just go in and cleaned it up. And it appears as though we went in and painted, cleaned. They were moving in the clean furniture, which I guess I would have assumed that just all would have been tossed. But, and then
Maybe
the rugs.
maybe some salvage value, I don't know.
Yeah, and then they're moving in, I assume mattresses will be delivered, which are new mattresses, which I responded back and I said, it just seemed to me that we were just to go in and remove the nuisance, right? Clean everything out, throw it away, and we're done. So I responded back about, I was curious as to why we would go in and paint and put mattresses in.
If the owner owns everything on the inside, that's probably why.
Well, we're not the owner.
No, but that was part of the damage, I'm guessing, so. The condo building owns the outside, but everything on the inside is owned by the person who was there that did the damage, I guess. I'm not sure what they did either.
Well, I hadn't got a response back, or at least I only checked this email account this morning. But I was gonna reread the quote that we had. I just don't remember us going in and
Chris?
buying mattresses, but
You may have mentioned it, but is there any mention of a mildew?
Yeah.
that's all cleaned up.
It's all cleaned up.
Yep.
That's the most important one.
I just know that there's quite a lot of mandates from the state with regard to these kind of cleanups. And, hopefully, we're gonna be able to recoup some of the money back. But I think at this point, I know that they followed all of the procedures that have been outlined by this sort of a process. And I think we're kind of, yes, we have a right to ask because it came out of our reserve fund, but I think some of these things are operational at this point because they did follow what they were told they had to do.
Sure.
That's how I
How
feel
many
about
liens
it.
are on this property?
Wouldn't be able
Because if
to.
we lost them, we may not get anything.
Well,
No,
it's-
we'll
it's
get
a-
our money back once the
Well,
the
if
title
that's-
is conveyed
that's
to
what I'm
somebody
sure.
else who pays.
The number one.
But you gotta remember, we're probably not number one on the lien list.
Yeah.
I guess not.
Neither do
Assuming
I.
the bank is.
Yes.
So that's the update with that. When I get an answer to the other question, like I said, I'm gonna look at the notes of the actual quote. If I do remember, did take a quick peek, but the quote wasn't all that detailed from the company as to what they would be doing. It was basically to remove, quote, the nuisance. So anyways,
What?
when I hear back on that, I'll let you guys know. Any other old business?
Well, are we doing our liaison
Yeah, we
reports
liaison
under here?
reports.
I just think it's important that I say that we finished our, the presentations have been finished in front of the CIP committee. Oscar did join us the other day, and he got to listen to some of the big numbers from the DPW and the Planning and Construction Committee, and listen to that discussion. I mean, we've vetted it now, we've asked our questions, there's been some things that have been moved around through the CIP, but we'll be doing our deliberations next Wednesday afternoon. I'm looking at the town manager, so if I'm saying something wrong, let me know, but it was a very interesting process. It's pretty much the same, but yet a little different, obviously, because we have the new town manager. But I think at the end of the day, we'll make what's the decision that's right for the town. And that's what I'll say. I mean, we had it's Chuck Gazier as the at-large member, Don Thayer, the finance director, Rodney by charter, it's all by charter, and then Andrew Gottlieb is from the Board of Selectmen, and then me. And very interesting discussion. It was nice having Oscar there too as well to ask some questions, because it is an open meeting.
I know.
It was an open meeting, but we did finish this afternoon, listening to all the last of the requests. And Wednesday, we'll be doing deliberations, and I'll keep you updated. At the 18th, I'll give you another report.
What's the total that they're, with all of the capital?
And well,
Just
if,
this
what the
year.
requests were, but because it's totally, you really want to know that number?
I want it, for the record, I want
Well,
to put it in.
the total of all department requests as they stood when the initial request went in was $1,020,000. We all know that's unrealistic. So we've been discussing it, and there's probably next week when because literally, these were just the discussions with the individual departments. Now comes the time where we all think about it until next
you vote on
Wednesday, and then we deliberate, and the public hearing in front of the Board of Selectmen with the CIP will be March 14th. March 14th on this, but obviously I'll have an update for you on the 18th. But yeah, it was $1,020,000. You also have to remember that not all of the funds are from our general fund. They're also from free cash. They're from, again, free cash. I hate that thing. The MCAT funds possibly. Ambulance receipts is the big thing.
Yep.
Is the ambulance receipts. But there were some things that, most of the things had been in the queue right along, not surprising, but they've been rearranged slightly. But I will give you an update when we've had our deliberations next Wednesday. That's my
Any
report.
questions for Terry?
Have you-
Okay.
No, been there.
No.
Yeah.
Any other liaison reports?
Just minor discussions with the library, but nothing major to report.
Okay. Was it regarding their budget or something, or?
Yeah, just, general discussions, as always, I really need a lot more, that kind of discussion.
Need a lot more what?
Everything. Same old.
Okay,
Like more money?
that's fine. Okay, so let's move into new business, and I'd like to welcome George Smith, Paul Funk, and Patricia DeBoer, the acting superintendent, to our meeting. And I understand that you're going to give us a relatively brief rundown of the fiscal budget, 2017. Yeah, sure. Good with our books?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Did you want to say anything quickly, or you figured I was going to go to the end? It's your call.
You were just close.
It's not easy to be a town manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Finance Committee. The school department is bringing forth a 1.83% increase over the FY16 budget. I'm going to try to hit some of the highlights, some of the risks that we take at the school department, that we try to build into the budget, and I've had this meeting with the town manager at some of the risks. A couple of the pluses is transportation went down $101,000, and that's due to our bus contract is with the Cape Cod Collaborative, which we are part of, and the Cape Cod Collaborative is actually part of the Mashpee School District. It's just a separate quasi organization that does our special needs, does a lot of our professional development, and it also does our transportation, both special education transportation and regular transportation. This contract started 7 years ago. The buses are now paid for, so we control when we're going to purchase the next set of new buses. So it's not like most bus companies at a certain point have to go out and purchase all, 16 new buses. We're going to do it gradually. For the next 2 or 3 years, we won't have to do any purchasing, so that brought the cost down $101,000. So that was one of the plus things that came out. One of the things that we directed, the superintendent directed the principals to do this year is to get into the supply closets, make sure that you're not buying supplies that you already have. So we went through that kind of stage, and the only one that increased, the Coombs School, their supplies, their bottom line expenses went down by $18,704, from $82,000 to $63,000, and these are round figures. The quotient went down from 127 to 111, about a $16,000 decrease in expense side of the budget. And the high school went up, and it's only because they're purchasing new math books. We're in that rotation that every year we're purchasing new math books, and the textbooks today are very costly. As you know, 80% of our budget is salaries, and I don't want to say it's a fixed cost, it's a variable, but again, as I said, 80% of it, so it's a level service budget, meaning that everybody that's on board now, I have in the budget, is on board next year. One of the things that's very difficult to budget for are the out of districts, the special needs students that we send out of districts. We try to do our best. I take the ones that are already out there that we know are going to be out there. Then we look at the possibilities of students going out. We don't take all of them. We try to find a happy medium. Last year in the FY15 budget, we did very, very well. We were able to keep a lot of those students in the district. This year, we're not as lucky. I had 3 within the last 3 weeks go out. So it's prorated this year, so it's not a big impact, and we had budget for it. We had projected it. But next year, those kids are going to be part of. There was an increase in the out of districts. The out of districts went up about 88,662, which is still pretty good. But we had last year we had a real good year, so we kind of carried over. I think I'll entertain any questions that you might have on this budget at this time.
What's the round number of the 1.8? What does that represent? What's the increase?
Oh, $374,480.
Is, just a question, I'm
Yep.
making, I don't know the answer. From a textbook to technology kind of a change, is that gradually happening on a regular basis? Is that why you see a decrease?
Right. One of the things that we did last year is we bought these Chromebooks, and the technology that these students are learning is just incredible. And we have moved, technology, but there's still that, like the history chairman bought textbooks, I believe, wasn't last year, the year before. He bought U.S. history, I believe it was U.S. history books, and they're like $125. And then what they do is they'll say, well, we'll give you the software that goes with it, we'll give you a 5-year deal. I made him go back and get an 8-year deal, and, if you want to, so we try to get a little extra each time we go out for, but they still use the textbooks for math, and I think it's geometry this year we're buying, and we're buying a math set next year. But, no, the Chromebooks they're using also.
The biggest line, which is the wage line, and I'm not sure what year of the contract that you're in with your teachers, and what the increase was. So it's kind of a two-part question, and the next would be, what was that increase? That's your largest, as you mentioned. Do you know
Well-
that off the top of your head?
Well, first of all, we're in bargaining right now, so for me, to give you anything, I have to be very careful on the information, or it be impact bargaining.
No,
So let me just, it's a 1-year contract that we're negotiating for next year, and it's a cost of living, and that seems to be the point that they're dealing with right now.
But do you
There
know
is-
what the increase was from last year to the,
2%, I believe it
This
was
was
2%. Yeah, yeah,
To 15 to 16 was
yeah, 15 to
2%.
16, yes, 2%.
so, and that was considered the cost of living?
I don't think it was a cost of living. That was a negotiated. Now, when we talk about the cost of living this year,
Yep.
there's no opening of language. In other words, I can't.
You're
you know,
only
I-
talking about the COLA. There's
Thank you.
nothing
Yeah,
else that's
nothing
being
else,
talked
nothing
about.
else. In other words,
No
so I can't
language
go in and
changes.
say that, I want to see this taken out of the contract, and I've kind of listed things.
Sure.
So it's a 1-year deal on the COLA. That's what they're negotiating now, the school committee. And, there's just no language in there.
But I think your question was, what's the COLA in the year we're currently operating in?
2%. It was 2%,
2%.
yeah.
Do you know
was
what
in the
that number
15 to 16.
represents, 2%?
This,
In dollars?
no, because this, don't forget, this is FY '17.
No, I realize
No.
that, but I'm just saying what the 2% represented from 15 to 16.
What was it?
Do you know off the top? I mean,
No, I don't.
and the only reason why I'm asking that, is maybe you can follow my train of thought.
I know, I have your train of thought, but I didn't bring the budget to actual, so
Okay, that's fine.
I don't believe I have that. I just brought 17, I
You
apologize.
can do an approximation. If it's 80% of the budget from that, I mean, you can.
Yeah, whatever that line
It's a
is.
true approximation.
Well, I know the increase was from 15 to 16 was I believe 2.74.
Almost 3.
Yeah, almost 3%.
Okay.
And we're down to 1.83. Now, from 14 to 15, we were at 1.84, so we're kind of back in that, we're back in that range again.
Yep.
So, but I apologize, I
no,
didn't even
no.
think to bring this year's.
You can't always take that
Right.
total salary into steps.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Step and grade and everything
yep.
else. I know, masters or whatever. all
And that
those
was,
things.
one of the things that, as we from September, the town manager wanted this budget in as of October 16th, and for us, that's pretty, I don't want to, it's jammed, because we got new teachers coming in, we got people that have left and gone to other school districts, we got people that decided to retire in August, so we got all this movement, so it's very difficult to pin down a number.
Yep.
And people are changing degrees and columns and so forth. So we were able to, around, I think a month later, we were able to pin down the 1.83. And again, I think it's a very good budget. I think it's a fair budget that we present before you.
Nope, I'll agree, and I don't disagree with that. I guess my next question is, and I don't mean to be taking up, jump in.
Sure you do. You like dominating.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sure.
Very good.
Doing a good job.
Oh,
I'm speaking loud enough.
So, In 2016, first question, do you feel as though you'll be able to turn back any money in this year,
Yes,
right now?
yes,
Do you have an approximation of what that is?
no. No.
Okay.
But you think there'll be something that you could turn back? Because I will tell you that that's a conversation that we've had for many years, is whether there could be funding for instance, the CIP changed this year from what the projection was for the FY17 thing, because you were already able to buy some of the things with leftover funds. So I was just curious, do you think, because we have, I can't remember what the amount was in the wireless project, but that's still upcoming. Do you think it's possible that you would have enough money left over in your budget from this year that you could possibly buy that capital item? Because you did.
It
you
was around
did-
300,000, am I correct?
Yeah, well, yeah, but I mean, no, I'm not.
No,
It
okay,
isn't
all
that
right,
much.
let me back-
It's what
okay, go ahead.
Mr. Maroney brought in front of the CIP the other day. It was just, we're curious because the original items that were in the CIP
Mm-hmm.
that were projected to be needed in FY17, one of them has already been done and completed because you used some of your leftover, and I'm just
Right.
using that funds to do that. Now, we're curious, as we get into our CIP discussions, if that's something you think you may be able to do for the request that's in front of us now. It's, what
The
is
answer
it,
is,
like
the answer is yes, but I
Yes.
can't,
Yeah,
it's kind of like I can't develop that game plan yet. I'm getting there.
Yeah.
Today, the past three days, past 2 days, I've been meeting with each of the principals, saying, okay, these are your balances right now.
Right.
What do you need to spend on the rest of the year? Because I'm getting requests from school committee members and other places that I could use that possible funding of the balances in each of these schools. So I met with the high school principal, so they're going to be fine.
Yep.
And right now, again, my concern is out of districts. We got kids at 45-day evals and so forth. So we have like a speech therapist we needed to outsource because we have a speech therapist that's out on sick leave, partial sick leave. So, those things I'm watching. I am going to meet on Monday, but there will be money. How much? Here's where the tough part comes in.
Right.
We had a person say, well, it's a plus in favor of what you're asking. Person says, I'm going to retire, so we got buybacks, we got all that.
Sure.
Sick day buyback. I'm not going to retire. So that money does come back, and, it's a very transparent budget. The school committee, we don't make any transfers without them okaying it. So, and most of it's going to come from the salary part.
Okay.
If you're asking me about transportation or some of these other things, I may find some money there. I've had a request for Chromebooks now from grades 3 to 6. Am I correct? From grades 3 to 6.
So that kind of, segues into my next question,
Oh,
which
yep.
of course is,
can I just, because I don't feel like I haven't really felt like I've got an answer.
Okay, go ahead.
You think you may be able to cover what the IT
I don't know,
request was
yeah, what was
from
the
Probably doesn't
figure?
know what the
What was the
number is.
figure?
I can't, what was it, 30?
70.
Oh, $70,000, $70,000.
Yes,
Just say yes to that.
yes, I will say that, yes.
Okay,
I'll say
thank
yes
you.
to
I'm
that.
just
No, no, no.
sorry, because
Because-
it'll help me with what we were going to discuss next week.
Well, a lot of things, too, a lot of things that, when Sean brings me, I want to see, I got a 3-year plan on my
Right.
desk right now, which is,
Yeah.
that's where the 300,000 comes in, and I want to know, we might be able to fund some of that. We have other sources that we're going to be talking about moving forward, but again, when we develop a plan like that, where we're spending that kind of money, the school committee has to be involved, along with the town manager and everyone else. Everybody has to be on
70 per year
board.
For 4 years.
No, this one is not.
Just this year?
Yeah, but I mean, we do have his projections
Yeah,
for
you
out
did get,
years. Oh,
that's
yeah.
where I was getting mixed up, because there was a 3-year plan on my desk
yeah.
that was like 300,000 a year over the next 3 years, and we will we'll be discussing that with the school committee in the next,
Well, a big for instance is that's why one of the things was taken out, was because it was like the third year of the plan.
right.
But you were able to purchase it with last year's end-of-year funds, and I
Right.
apologize, but I
And
just,
that-
It's all good.
I
It's all
just
good.
wanted to have that out there in the
Right.
public, because that's something that I'm thinking, yes, we agree that it's needed. It's just if there are available funds within the school budget at the end of the year, maybe that's what we do with it instead.
right, and, yeah, we needed that.
Or you turn it all back.
Well, we actually needed that.
Either way, it's available.
Well, we can get into that a little bit too,
Yeah.
but we needed that infrastructure in order to run our Chromebooks. So it was, we had to move money there to cover so these things will work.
Yeah.
Just going back, I'll just give you a brief, back in FY '15, I said that we had a 1.84 increase in the budget in FY '15, from 14 to 15, we had a 1.84, of which we turned back to the town 176,702. So we actually spent, and we bought all these Chromebooks. We bought all the Chromebooks for 7 through 12. Every student has one, 7 through 12. And maybe the acting superintendent can help me on where we have the,
Grade 5 is a one-to-one, and then in grades 3 and 4, it's usually about 2 classes that they share sets across, and we were able to shift. The carts come with 30, and we don't need 30 in a cart. We bought another cart, which was $1,500, but we took 5 out of every cart, so the Coombs School now has access to Chromebooks.
That's great.
That's good.
But I know that Mrs. O'Brien is looking for more of a one-to-one for grades 3 and 4 because of the park testing and being able to do it all at the same time.
so actually in year, fiscal year 15, the actual expenditure, the new money that came to the schools was only 0.94%. But we, from the 1.84, we turned back 176,702. We actually expended 183,669. So we spent roughly about half of it, of the new money.
Right.
The thing that was interesting was a lot of the money came from the special ed out of districts. And we,
Yeah.
one year you have it.
One year you have it,
Next year you don't.
Yeah.
See, in my feeling was, a number that I heard at one point was when you took all the Chromebooks regarding the infrastructure, the actual machines and so forth, it was close to $375,000. And for an unbudgeted number, to be able to sort of find that kind of money, in my opinion, is troubling.
Is what?
Is troubling, because that's not a tight budget in my position. Now, what I will say is, I do understand that your budget moves, it ebbs and flows, and
Right.
that's been explained to us, and I appreciate that. The other side of that coin is that we also have October town meeting, and perfect opportunity that if in fact, because the manager needs the budget at a certain time, and you are certain, I guess I look at this and I say, last year you had you found 375,000. You're asking for an increase of 374,000. So let's just say that that's 6, 7, and you're saying that your transportation is going down by 100. I'm
Correct.
kind of looking at this saying, this looks like an increase if I was to just do quick math of almost $800,000. Because you found 375 for Chromebooks, you're going up, the 1.8 represents 374, so 6, call it 7 and change, plus the 100,000 that you're getting from transportation. That's just the quick.
850.
850, that's just a quick math off the top of my head, from 16 to 17. So that's kind of my only concern. I think it's a great budget, Paul, don't get me wrong, 1.8 increase, I think is probably the lowest we've seen, in subsequent years. But if I do the quick math, I think what again, my thing, what sunk you guys a little bit is buying Chromebooks or spending almost $400,000 that wasn't budgeted. That's the concern.
Well, part of it, as I said, came from the sped.
Yep.
Part of it came from the schools.
I mean, we've never seen such a large turnback ever in this town. 100,000, give or take, stuff like that. All I'm saying is, in your sped, as you say, ebbs and flows. And it just seems to me as though to find $400,000, and if I add in the increase and so forth, and the transportation, I'm at 800 grand. Year over year,
Pardon me?
year over year. I mean, if I'm wrong, somebody tell me.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I have another question.
Sure.
Just because there's a lot of scuttlebutt out there, I would like to put this out on the floor. How much money do you have in the school choice funds account?
About 935,000.
Wow. And how can those funds be expended by the school? I know that, you have
They-
control of it, the school.
Right, the school controls it. It's without further appropriation.
That's what I thought.
Basically, it hasn't been touched, and that's basically where we'll develop a game plan in the next in the next few years to develop that to maybe offset that 300,000 that we need every year for our infrastructure. But those are decisions I bring to the school committee.
Right,
I don't feel
understand that. They
comfortable
have line
making
item
those
control.
decisions.
Yep.
I know
And the
that.
other, there might be an odd thing that we needed at the end of the year or something, and we might charge something to that, but I don't think we've spent hardly any of that money. At the end of FY '15, and you want to spend it in arrears because on the school choice, the kids come and go.
Right.
And the state.
Spend this year's money until
Right,
at
so
least
if I
next
go
year.
back to FY '15's money, it's about $689,000. So you always, it's kind of like the circuit breaker, you're always spending it a year in the arreas, so you don't
That's
get
still a
burned.
lot of money.
It's a lot of money, but I don't feel, that's something that the school committee, I think, is going to be looking at and moving forward in expending that. You asked me how we can spend it. We can spend it for infrastructure.
That's what I
We-
thought.
Yeah, we can spend it for Chromebooks. We can spend it for textbooks. We can spend it for basically everything but construction,
Right.
transportation. We cannot spend it for transportation. You can't
understood.
spend it for
But
transportation.
obviously, you can move, they have line item control and can transfer money around. So,
Well,
yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
but
you
that's
think,
not the- yeah.
but you think about it, if you bought something that was on the other side of the budget, and then you needed something in the other end, there can always be a transfer. We know how that works, but
the-
I just think it's something that, I'm not saying it's your fault in any way, shape, or form. I think it's time that the school came up with a plan with what's gonna happen with this money
Yeah.
and how they're
Yeah,
gonna
I
keep
think-
it, because that's a lot of money
Yep.
sitting out there,
And I think a lot of it's going to have to be spent on infrastructure, technology infrastructure. I think that's our biggest,
Technology
yeah,
infrastructure.
yeah.
So not construction, like you said.
No, we can't get into
Can't
construction. We can do that. We can do the technology
Because of course, we're
infrastructure.
looking at the windows at the quad
Oh,
there,
yeah.
of course, and the
No, I can't do
CIP.
that. No, I can't.
The only reason that I'm bringing it up,
Wouldn't that be
there's some
used?
big ticket items there.
And that's even bigger than
Yes,
that.
well, we know. But I'm just suggesting it because I've been hearing a lot of scuttlebutt, people start talking, so I thought if I just put it out here, say,
We
what do
did-
you have in it? What would you suggest? So you're saying 689 is what you had before?
Yeah, that would be the figure that I
That's
would put.
really
That's
a
rounded up. I mean,
realistic
it might be
number.
689.5 or whatever, but it's 689.
Yeah.
That's a good figure to use. But we did use some of that money. I did go back recently, and I did check, some of it was used for infrastructure, because they couldn't use iPads and Chromebooks and
Well, maybe
Parts of the
that's
building.
why that thing was taken out of the CIP process.
that's, again,
It's probably where it
and
happened.
then we'll, that's why I asked for a 3-year plan also, so that I can bring that with Sean Maroney, not so much me, I'm not the
Right.
tech guy here, we bring that before the school committee, and then they can make the decision, yeah, this is a place where we want to expend that money.
Right. And George, I'm looking at you, school committee member.
Well, that
Might
could-
want to really look at that with Mr. Funk. It was not a criticism. It's
No,
just-
no, I know,
It's out there.
it's not like we're touching it either.
Right.
It's something, I can tell you, we did spend it on infrastructure. I think there was only like two things that Sean had charged to it, and there was some professional development. Not a lot of money, a few $1,000s, probably under 1,000.
But, it's, again, it's a thing that can
Oh, no.
help the town out
Right.
all the way.
And
We're a
when
team.
we met with the town manager and we met with the selectmen that day, the town manager explained to me what he's got coming down the road for infrastructure on his side.
Right.
So if we can help him out on our side to alleviate some of that.
That's exactly where I was going.
Okay.
Thanks, Paul, for answering my question.
Paul, just a final question I have. I don't know if anybody, please jump in.
Well, the only question I have, just a point of interest, the school committee has been mentioned several times. In the preparation of this budget, did the school committee, or has the school committee had any input on this? Or, I remember clearly how Giorgio once told us that the budget is very difficult to understand. And I just wonder if you have now a better insight and give us some more guidance.
The budget initially was prepared by Superintendent Hyde.
By Hyde?
By Mr. Hyde, Mr. Funk, with consultations basically with the main staff, the principals, that sort of thing. That was the number that we originally came over here with, which was 3.07%.
We have no sound.
At that point in time.
I think you should use the mic.
Yeah, there's no sound anyways. I apologize, everybody. I think they're trying to work on it, right, Rod? But to no avail.
Ma-
I'm getting repeated texts, you got no audio.
Right. So no one can hear us, so talk away.
Okay,
Say what you want to say.
go ahead.
Paul, if you want to sit down, you're more than welcome.
No, that's all right, I'm up here now.
Thank you.
Thanks. The
Hi, Suzanne.
school committee does not get involved in that process. The school committee gets involved after basically it's presented as the school department budget at the town managers meeting. It was at that point the school committee got involved. And we had to actually take a vote in the school committee to revise, I guess you would say, the school department budget from, well, actually, we called it the superintendent's budget was the first one, and the acting superintendent's budget is the second one, which is what you're seeing here. The school committee did get involved in that, and that was reducing it from 3.07 to 1.83%.
Yep.
There were some other questions while I was in Cuba. I do not know what happened at that meeting. I do know that the budget as revised was passed at that amount. So I'm assuming other school committee questions were answered.
Maybe I can give you a little bit, just
Sure.
under, in 1993, school reform came in and gave principals more power. So the way we set up the request for the budget, the salary side of the budget is the salary side of the budget. We need so many teachers, we need so many aides. So there's one, that I call that the salary side of the budget. The other side of the budget is the expense side of the budget, and that's where each principal controls his school. And what he does is he's supposed to meet with the teachers and ask them what they want. If there's new programs that come in, they have to develop them. And then he comes to us and puts on each line item and defends each line item. He came before the Superintendent Hyde at the time, and defended each line item on the expense side.
Did they even know about it?
The transportation I handle, because I deal with the transportation, both the special ed, so I bring that forward. So after we get all those numbers, we put together a budget, and then we print, it's the superintendent's budget until it goes to the school committee for a vote. School committee can ask the questions. Now, at the time, as I said, it was on October 16th, it was very, very fluent because we got teachers coming back, and the big part, the expense part was not the problem. It was the people moving in and out. And naturally, if you get a teacher that's got 40 years or 30 years experience going out, and you hire someone on step one, there's a big differential in the salaries. And then the school committee reviews the budget. They ask any questions that, I asked them basically to email me the questions, because I don't want to spend 2 nights or 3 nights answering questions, so we get them answered, and we move on from there.
The other thing, well, I did anyway, the school committee, when we went from 1 to 2 as far as the budget is concerned, I did go to the principals and ask, was there anything on their wish list that didn't get in there? And all of them came actually with initial requests. One stood at the end, which was the Chromebooks, and that, the first time the third graders saw the Chromebooks was the day of the park test. And, you know,
It's hard.
really, it's a legitimate thing to have the kids use the Chromes before the test comes in.
Right.
So it's,
Well,
well, yeah.
I, for one, appreciate all the work, because I know it's not easy paring things down. It's never easy to say no. Things.
It would seem to me as though if somebody were to ask you to make the 1.8 a 0, because that only represents 374,000, I believe, which is what you said, seems like it's doable.
I don't know how I do it.
Well, as I said before, you know, you found 375,000 to build,
Yeah, but
and
I-
I know things moving, I get it.
I don't
know.
think I could do it in this budget.
Well,
I'll be
my
honest with-
question would be to you is, if somebody, lack of a better word, held a gun to your head, right, you figure it out, but would you then, let's just say you came back, and I'm not suggesting this, in October, if you found out that your sped was high, right?
I'm sorry.
If in fact your special education, because you're telling me that last year, the monies that you did for the Chromebooks came out of special education.
Most of it.
Most
There
of
was
it.
some out of salaries, not
Right.
a big number.
Yeah.
But there was some. Yep.
Not knowing what that number is for 17, and I appreciate that, you would have a pretty good understanding what that number would be you would have a hard number in October.
I just had 3 kids go out last week. One was,
Right.
one was
That's the
one
thing
was
is-
residential.
They
Yeah.
can be placed during the year,
Right.
and you don't know. It could be a program that costs $750,000, and I'm not exaggerating. There are
But
some things. But
not the norm.
A lot
That's
of them are
understood.
100 grand. I mean,
Yeah.
that's. I know
Residentials run upwards of, up to, I can only give you the ones that we have.
Of course.
Couple of 100,000.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a residential.
Yeah, and there's always going to be the worst-case scenario, and next thing you know, we got caught with our pants down, and
Yeah,
you know, it's
yeah.
unfortunate. But overall, it just seems to me is that you're on the high end. I'm not going to go any further with it. I think it's a great budget coming at 1.8. I'm glad you were able to work with the town side as closely as it appears that you did. You know, I thank George for really stepping in and doing what you did, George, because I do think it's a tight budget.
The
But-
other thing, and this is a philosophy that maybe the town, the selectmen, and everybody wants to consider, but it's always been that the philosophy has been, we don't want you to come back asking for more money. Now, do we want to change that philosophy?
It's not for me to decide.
Yeah, coming back in October, you know, that's what people were always saying, and I don't know if we want to change that. I wouldn't want to.
Well, based on what you presented, you're not going to have to, for sure.
That's true.
That's true. And, you know, I understand where you're coming from, and no matter where I worked, I never came back and asked for more money. And it's not like we did buy the Chromebooks, but that was all approved by the school committee.
No, that's not you.
No.
That's on them. Absolutely agree.
Yeah, you know, that was presented to them, and I don't have it with me, but I can show you the dates and the whole bit. But, you know, still, anything we don't spend, you know, it comes right
Oh,
back
comes
to the
back.
town.
Oh.
And it may, you know, I'm not saying we're going to, but we could turn back a big portion of that 374.
Yeah.
We'll take it.
I know,
Yeah.
I know, Mr. Collins.
Exactly.
I realize that.
Well,
Okay, any further questions? for
No,
Paul?
but I'm glad Terry brought up the school choice thing. I think that definitely should be looked at. There's a lot of money there.
Yeah, well, I think that,
It should have been brought up before, but
yeah, but it hasn't been touched. It's not like we're using that and, to just buy whatever, that, I think there has to be a game, I always like to hear a game plan, like a Sean Maroney, 3 years, this is what it's, basically it's gonna cost us this. It may be more or less,
Yeah, schedule, sure.
Yeah.
so,
Okay,
great.
thank you, Paul.
thank you.
nice job, Paul.
Thank
I'd
you.
just like to add that Mr. Funk is an expert manager of monies and budgets, and worked with him on the side of being the principal, now in a closer partnership. And there's not a worry of mismanagement or grant monies that don't get allocated correctly. He really is on top of his game, so
I would agree.
I appreciate
We agree.
that.
We
Yep.
agree. Thanks for saying that.
Yeah,
Yep.
thanks, Paul.
And he's part-
Um,
You lived.
I've been there before. This isn't my first rodeo.
yeah, I don't think so.
We know that.
We just received our budget booklets from town manager, and he would just like to say a very quick blurb. Obviously, we haven't had an opportunity to look at it or dissect it, but the quick overview from the town
I
manager.
have a quick comment after looking at it cursorily, is that his recommendation matches their request.
You want to vote now?
If you have any other questions, if
Probably.
you get in touch with me, email me,
Sure, sure, no issues.
Well, Paul and the school officials are here, and I know
Sorry.
the audio's not working,
Yeah,
so
it
I
doesn't
don't even
matter.
know why I'm standing here, but at any rate,
It looks official.
it looks
Thought I was
official.
playing deaf here.
It looks official, right, Oscar?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I do want to publicly thank the school department. I think there was a cohesive effort to try to put together a team effort to reach some numbers that could keep our town functioning at the level that it's currently at. And unfortunately, we've got some realities that we've got to confront at the town side, particularly relating to wastewater, or
Clean
as
water.
Selectman Godley refers to it as, clean water. And all joking aside, with the formation of the Natural Resource Department potentially in May, which is coming down the pike, and with a couple of other adjustments that I felt compelled to make, without cooperation from the school, we would not have met the numbers that we were shooting for. So let there be no mistake about it. The school department really took the brunt of this and were able to make the bottom line work. And I do really appreciate it. On the municipal side, you'll have an opportunity, obviously, to go over your book, your numbers, but generally, there were no cuts. And when I say cuts, there's sometimes a fuzzy definition of cut, and I just want to make it clear that a reduction in a requested expanded service, to me, is not a cut.
No, I agree.
A cut would be if I said, you're getting less than what you received last year. That's a cut, in my eyes. And I just want to make that clear. There were a couple of departments where you will now see an overtime account, and you might say, why? The reason is, quite simply, obviously there's a difference between an exempt and a non-exempt employee, or a salaried versus hourly employee. We don't have a choice legally. If we send somebody out to perform an essential function, he or she has to be paid time and a half. Now, let me just give you an example. If something crashes within one of our facilities and we have to send an IT individual out that's not the department head, he is entitled to time and a half. There was nothing budgeted.
If it happens after hours.
After hours, of course, Oscar, after hours. But it can happen after hours at the PD and/or at the fire department.
So
I
did
don't,
you add an overtime line for every department?
for those departments that would potentially require it.
Run the risk?
Now, you might say, well, what would be another one? Health department. There could be somebody from health, specifically Ronnie Warden, who might be needed on a Saturday. So I'm not saying,
What did they do in the past?
I'm not going to get into it,
All right, that's fair enough.
but I'm going to tell you, I know what I need to do. And that's why you have an overtime account. I can't have an unfunded liability, nor can I sit there and suggest that somebody do something that doesn't conform to federal labor laws or state. So that's another item. Professional development is something that I've certainly advocated. You're going to see some line items for that. I think that in order to remain polished, and in order for somebody to keep sharpened knowledge, skills, and abilities, and enable them to perform their essential functions, we got to make sure that professional development is consistent, and we don't want to be accused of negligent training or negligent retention as a result of failure to train.
No, you want good employees,
Yep.
that's right.
Yep, nothing wrong.
And I want to make it clear, no junkets. I'm just talking about, we're not going to be sending somebody to Hawaii, but we would send somebody out of state if what they were going to obtain for information could be useful in the development of our services or in our personnel back here.
Fine.
But you're going to see those line items.
Okay.
And they were not always there. I did reduce 2 full-time positions, one at the police department and one at the fire department. And there is an additional new position within your budget, and technically that right now is coming into the police department, but that would be transferred out into a new Department of Natural Resources, assuming it's approved in May. Additionally, I just want to point out a couple more things, and then I'll let you off the hook here. There are funds for contractual obligations. Specifically, there are some union contracts that do call for a sick buyback. In the past, we have not funded it, on the premise that not everybody takes advantage of the sick buyback, which is all conditional. Some people don't utilize it even though they're entitled to it. Here's the problem. I don't want a budget like that, because if in fact they all lined up and said, this is my contractual provision, I'm entitled to this, I want my sick buyback, and we don't have the funds to cover it, what do?
Boy, that sounds just like what Mr. Funk said earlier about special.
However, to satisfy folks like you, Chris,
It
This-
can all be put
and-
back into the general fund at the end of the year.
what I've said to the finance director, who's been absolutely fantastic throughout this process, I don't know where I'd be without her throughout this process, and the financial team, including the assessor, as well as the treasurer. I mean, they've been great. I mean, we've got an ace team. We really do.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. If they do not use the sick buyback, the employee, it's going to be tracked in a specific line item, which you will see, department to department, and we expect that money back. That is not to be used for overtime. That is to be designated for that purpose, so that'll be a turn back at the end of the year if they don't utilize the sick buyback. So in essence, it looks like an increase. Technically it is. But at the same time, some of that should be coming back, assuming they don't all use it.
Those funds must have then been, if there wasn't a line item for them prior, they must have, how was it funded? You may not know the answer.
It wasn't. That's the problem. And I don't want to suggest that the terms and conditions of the sick buyback are the same in each contract, but what I can tell you is anybody that was eligible for X or Y amount of sick buyback days, those have been budgeted and accounted for in the budget
This
that's
budget.
in front of you. So those are the highlights or lowlights, depending upon how you look at it. Now, some folks, again, at the town side may say, well, the manager didn't give us enough money, reduced our request. There is a difference between a reduction in a request versus a cut from last year. We are maintaining our level services. We are maintaining those. And we are meeting our contractual obligations, and we are funding natural resources, and we are doing the things that I just described. We would not be doing it if it wasn't for the school having some flexibility.
Great. Any questions for town manager?
Oh, one more thing before I forget it, or one final thought. Your overall increase is right around 2.1% overall. I think it's going to be potentially a little less. Why? Because you'll see in your book that we've projected a 12% increase in insurance, and we're anticipating a little bit less than that. I was talking with the, via email, with the assistant manager from Falmouth who sits on that committee, and she was saying hopefully 10 and even less. So if that number is reduced, then obviously you're going to have a little savings there, to the extent that your overall increase is going to be 2% or less. That's a fairly reasonable budget.
Yep, it's
Sure
tight.
is.
Seems tight.
Sure is.
And we're doing all the things that you want done.
That we did. All right, we'll have to go through it.
That's a good one.
Any questions?
And line up your questions, and if there's a specific department that, you know, you have questions with, I'd want to bring in the department head along with me. So if you could just let me know, Chris,
I will.
because I don't want to come in and try to answer for a department head.
No, it's not fair if you don't know the questions.
Yeah.
That's not, we're not looking to put you on the spot.
I
Just
don't
looking
mind.
for the answers.
Haven't you done that to me before?
I do it to everybody.
All right,
Thanks, Chris.
Great.
all right. Thank
Great,
you.
thanks.
All right, thank you. All right, so let's, as we begin to study the budget, if you have questions, email them to me. I'll compile them for our next meeting on the 18th.
2 weeks.
You have 2 weeks to go through. I might suggest that if you want to stick to it towards your liaison committees, that's fine, unless if you want to go and do the whole thing, I'll probably go through the whole thing just to look at it, whatever. Just email me your questions so we can give them enough time. You know, I would say, if we're going to meet on Thursday, I think it would be fair if we had your questions by Monday?
Monday, yeah.
Monday at the latest, which is,
Well, that
It's gonna be
Monday
the
is a holiday.
oh, is that President's Day?
Yeah.
So why don't we say then, because that's not fair to them to give them 2 or 3 days. Why don't we say like
Friday.
The Friday before, which I'm gonna say is 12th?
12th.
12th.
Yep.
So if you want to make a note for yourself,
What's the date?
Friday, the 12th.
The 12th, okay.
Thank you, George.
I thank you.
Bye. Friday, the 12th. Send me the things. I'll compile them on the 13th, that Saturday. I'll send them over to town manager. He can get the, if we need a department head to come out and talk, or he can answer it or whatever. So,
I made an appointment with the town manager for the 9th, and among other things, I'm going to bring with me is the questions that I may have, and at least I'm the liaison, you know, for the department, like the DPW. And it's a very hefty budget item, and so hopefully get some answers.
that's fine. That's fine. But again, send me your questions. I'll put them together, send them off to Rodney, and we'll get them answered. If you feel as though you need more details on these lines, send me that request, and I can certainly send it off to Dawn, and she can go in a little deeper. You know what I mean? On the lines.
Let's also not forget, if I do want to mention, if some of these things can still be answered if you go back to the original budget book. I think we tend to forget that a lot of the detail is in there. I mean, obviously, some of the numbers have changed.
Right, don't forget,
but
this is the town
latest.
manager's budget that he's submitting to us. The budget that was submitted by the department heads
Yes.
is that big book that we have.
Yeah.
Okay?
It's got all their thought process.
It's
and all
got
that.
the, it's got the dialogue as to where they were going and so forth, and, you could compare one against the other to see why, Rod went up or down or sideways or
Especially
whatever.
with your liaison assignments. I
Yep.
think it's important to go by the departments that you've been assigned to.
Exactly. Okay. Any other questions, comments, concerns, issues?
Then we make a motion to it.
I have a motion on the table to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye.